On July 30, 1975, the American labor leader, James Riddle Hoffa, better known as Jimmy Hoffa, vanished without a trace. A man whose life was intertwined with power, mystery, and criminal connections. Was his disappearance orchestrated by the mafia? Or did he simply disappear into thin air? The search for Hoffa has been one of the most perplexing and widely discussed true crime cases in modern history. Today, we dive deep into the events of that day, the investigation that followed, and the theories that still remain. What happened to Jimmy Hoffa? Jimmy Hoffa was a larger-than-life figure in the world of labor unions. As the president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, Hoffa was one of the most influential and controversial men in America. Under his leadership, the Teamsters became the largest and most powerful labor union in the United States. Hoffa wasn't just a union boss, he was also deeply connected with organized crime, and that's where his story takes a dark turn. In the early years, Hoffa's influence grew rapidly, but so did his enemies, both inside and outside of the union. His connections with the mafia, in particular, sparked suspicion and fueled rumors. By the early 1970s, Hoffa's legal battles and prison sentence for jury tampering had taken a toll on his health and his leadership. But despite everything, Hoffa was determined to return to his former position. He had been released from prison and was fighting to reclaim his leadership over the Teamsters, but his return would come at a deadly cost. July 30, 1975, was a day that began like any other. Hoffa called his wife, Josephine, telling her he would be meeting two men at the Machu's Red Fox restaurant in Bloomfield Township, Michigan. These men, Tony Provenzano and Anthony Giacalone, were both known figures with ties to organized crime. Hoffa had hoped to mend a relationship with Provenzano, but there was bad blood between the two men. Provenzano had long been a rival of Hoffa's, and Hoffa's attempt to regain power had angered him. Hoffa was seen entering the restaurant around 2:45 p.m. and told the hostess that he was waiting for a meeting. As hours passed, Hoffa never left, and no one saw him again. The restaurant's staff later testified that Hoffa had spoken to no one and had not left the premises. His car remained parked outside, but Hoffa was nowhere to be found. Hoffa's wife, Josephine, grew worried when he did not return home that evening. She contacted the police, and by the next morning, authorities began their investigation. Hoffa was officially declared missing, and thus began the search for one of the most famous men to ever disappear. The FBI soon took over the investigation, and they quickly learned that Hoffa had not met with the men he had claimed he would. Both Provenzano and Giacalone denied ever agreeing to a meeting with Hoffa. The FBI's immediate suspicions pointed toward the mafia, as Hoffa had many ties with criminal figures, including Provenzano himself. Searches began almost immediately. The FBI scoured Hoffa's home, the restaurant, and nearby areas in hopes of finding clues. They even dug up land in search of Hoffa's body, following rumors that he had been buried at Giant Stadium in New Jersey or even under the Detroit River. But their efforts came up empty. Hoffa had vanished, and the investigation was soon faced with dead ends and growing frustration. The investigation was riddled with false leads, and the FBI began to suspect that Hoffa's disappearance had been carefully planned by those who were close to him, someone he trusted. As the search for Hoffa stalled, the theories began to grow. Was Hoffa really murdered by the mafia? Or did he disappear for other reasons? Numerous theories have been suggested over the years, and it's still unclear which one, if any, is the truth. The most widely accepted theory is that Hoffa was murdered by mafia members who feared his return to power. Hoffa's efforts to reclaim control over the Teamsters were seen as a threat to the organized crime syndicates who had used the union for their own gain. Some believe Hoffa was lured to the meeting and then executed, his body hidden to prevent anyone from finding it. Another theory suggests that Hoffa's disappearance was part of an internal power struggle within the union itself. Provenzano and Giacalone had their own ambitions, and Hoffa's return to the Teamsters may have put them in direct conflict with him. It's possible Hoffa was killed by rivals within his own ranks, making the case even more complicated to unravel. Other conspiracy theories claim that Hoffa was killed and his body secretly disposed of in a remote location, such as a farm or a landfill, to make it impossible for authorities to trace. But as the years went on, and no evidence was found, people began to question whether Hoffa had simply faked his own disappearance. Could it have been a well-planned escape to get away from his enemies? A few other theories continue to stir public interest. One of the most bizarre theories suggests Hoffa was buried in the cement of a newly constructed building, such as the Detroit Mafia headquarters or even inside a foundation for a new hotel or casino. Others suggest Hoffa was placed in a barrel and dropped into a body of water, possibly the Great Lakes. Some believe that Hoffa wasn't murdered at all, and that he staged his disappearance to escape his enemies. This theory suggests that Hoffa was well aware of the threats against him and chose to disappear rather than face certain death. If true, this would mean Hoffa may have been living in hiding for all these years. But despite all the theories, the truth remains elusive. In 1982, Hoffa was declared legally dead, but the case remained open. The FBI, over the years, has followed hundreds of leads, but none have led to a definitive answer. The disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa is more than just a crime, it's a mystery that's gripped the public's imagination for decades. Theories have been tested, investigations have come and gone, but Hoffa's fate is still uncertain. The case of his disappearance became a symbol of corruption, power, and the dangerous crossroads where organized crime and labor unions met. What happened to Jimmy Hoffa? Was he murdered by his mafia allies, or did he escape to live out the rest of his life under a different name? For now, the truth remains a mystery, and it's likely that we'll never know exactly what happened to him. But one thing is clear, Hoffa's disappearance is a part of American history, and it will continue to fascinate and puzzle people for generations to come. As we look back on this mystery, we must ask ourselves, what really happened to Jimmy Hoffa? If you have your own theory, let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more true crime stories and unsolved mysteries. Until next time, stay curious, and stay vigilant.